In a recent Variety sit-down at 95, Clint Eastwood startled Hollywood by matter-of-factly recalling 7 actresses who, at different moments, made him lose his cool. He didn't hedge. If anything, he sounded amused, like a man finally tipping out stories he'd kept corked for half a century. That list, he hinted, held extraordinary women and stranger-than-fiction moments. One who swore she'd been his wife in ancient Egypt. One who flirted openly at the Dirty Harry premiere until Maggie Johnson walked out, and others who lingered outside his house long after wrap. So persistent he changed the locks. Who were the 7? And which name, in Clint's own accounting, became his greatest regret? Among the 7, none drew more talk than Meryl Streep. In the mid-1990s, she was the lodestar of American acting. 2 Oscars, constant nominations, and the kind of quiet power that made rooms lean her way. When the bridges of Madison County rolled into Winterset, Iowa in 1994, locals noticed more than cameras. They noticed Clint and Meryl. On set, their rhythm was uncanny. Close-ups lingered because the looks didn't feel performed. Mark Wilson shooting stills. Later said on NBC he'd seen plenty of screen romances. But the way Clint watched Meryl wasn't acting. By late July 1994, word spread they'd spent hours at a small Winterset spot called the Picket Fence. A server told people that Meryl kept touching his forearm. Clint, usually flinty, was all soft smiles. They left after midnight, his hand at the small of her back, a detail that traveled Main Street by morning. Context made the murmur louder. Clint's divorce from Maggie Johnson was long finalized, and his scorched split from Sandra Locke still echoed through town gossip. He was single, if scandal shadowed. Meryl, married to sculptor Don Gummer and mother of 4. Yet, as 1994 pieces noted, she and Don had reportedly spent time living apart. Asked by Entertainment Weekly about working with Clint, she laughed. He has a way of looking at you that makes you feel like the only woman in the room. A light line with a long tail. To Winterset, that summer felt like a movie after the movie. 2 titans, 1 small bar, and a quiet exit past 12 that people there still talk about. Say Sophia Loren and most people see Italian cinema distilled. The 1961 Oscar for 2 women, the feline eyes, the hourglass silhouette. Life once called her the embodiment of 20th century femininity. Her personal life had already fed headlines. Cary Grant reportedly wrote pleading letters during Houseboat in 1958, but Loren chose producer Carlo Ponti. Into this world strode Clint Eastwood in 1973, flush from High Plains Drifter. At Cinecittà Studios, Ponti hosted a lavish co-production gala. In A Crimson Valentino, Sophia paused a room to silence. A wire shot by Paolo Bruno caught Clint several paces away, eyes fixed. European papers ran it under, the only woman who silenced the cowboy. The rest became balcony mythology. Corriere della Sera ran a column about Clint, leaning in on a terrace and Sophia laughing not the public laugh, but the private one. La Stampa added whispers of a sighting at the Excelsior Hotel days later. She was married. He was free and famously not alone. Variety teased in September 1973, Sophia shakes America's cowboy. Years on, in a RAI interview, Lauren smiled. Clint is fascinating. Those eyes are hard for a woman to ignore. One sentence, endless echoes. Grauman's Chinese Theater, December 1971. Dirty Harry was Clint's pivot from Western icon to urban myth. He arrived with Maggie Johnson, a glamorous front for a marriage already frayed. Then the doors opened and Raquel Welch swept in, a white gown catching every lens. She was 31, the fur bikini legend of 1 million years BC, and one of the era's defining screen sirens. Raquel glided to the stage. They clinked glasses, leaning close under the spots. Somewhere in that moment, Maggie stood and left. A freelancer, Jerry Harper, caught a stark frame. Clint and Raquel, eyes locked. Maggie in the background heading for the aisle. The shot sold quickly and never stopped running. After-party whispers said Clint and Raquel spoke privately for nearly 30 minutes, then slipped out a side door of the Beverly Hilton. She was already linked in gossip to Elvis Presley and later Steve McQueen. For a still-married Clint, a single sparkling toast felt like a thunderclap. The premier that should have crowned his new image instead lit up his private fault lines and tied Raquel Welch to one of the 1970s most replayed Hollywood moments. Under the furnace sky of Durango, Mexico, 1970, the crew of Two Mules for Sister Sarah wrestled with heat and dust. Clint Eastwood, 40, was at his physical peak. Shirley MacLaine was Hollywood's resident original, witty, political, and unabashedly metaphysical. Between setups, she'd talk about reincarnation, samurai in one life, an 18th century dancer in another. Then she looked at Clint and said they'd been husband and wife in ancient Egypt. Some laughed. Clint didn't. He just watched her, like a man listening for a sound only he could hear. On May 12, 1970, the set called action, and the stars were gone. Hours stretched. Don Siegel fumed. The day's cost meter howled. Near sunset, Clint and Shirley returned on horseback without explanation, then delivered a perfect take. A wrangler swore he'd seen them earlier, riding toward an abandoned monastery miles off. What happened out there stayed out there, but from that day, the crew whispered that the two odd souls found each other in the desert. Shirley's life already read like a dossier. Rumors of Dean Martin. Quiet vacations with Frank Sinatra, a private London supper with Andrew Parker Bowles, long before Camilla became queen. She railed against the Vietnam War, drew an FBI file, and treated studio politics like chess. Clint, private, punctual, seemed briefly pulled into her eccentric orbit. Biographers would later say that energy haunted him for a while, as if Durango had pressed its mark. When Clint chose Carmel, California as the canvas for his directing debut, Play Misty for Me, 1971, it felt like a home game. Casting Jessica Walter as Evelyn, the dangerously fixated fan, was a masterstroke. She wasn't a pinup type. She was cuttingly beautiful, with stage-honed precision and eyes that read like questions you couldn't answer. Crew members said she carried Evelyn's intensity after cut. One day the set went still because the look she kept on Clint no longer felt like acting. Then came the story Carmel still trades. In November 1971, white flowers at Clint's door with a note. "You will never escape." A delivery man claimed the sender's name was Jessica Walter. Nothing was ever confirmed, but the rumor sprinted ahead of the film and fused with it. Her off-screen life fascinated the Broadway press. Brief entanglements whispered with Hal Prince. Later a powerful TV producer, a reputation for being brilliant, independent, and hard to label. Even after she married Ron Liebman, people framed her as too formidable to contain. Clint admitted in a late 1970s chat that sometimes he couldn't tell if he was looking at Evelyn or Jessica. After Misty, he praised her in public and kept his distance in work, maybe because the line between character and reality had worn too thin. Asked years later which co-star could disarm him with a glance, Clint surprised people by naming Donna Mills. While Jessica Walter drew headlines for volatility in Misty, Donna played calm, clean lines. California Light, the girl next door with a secret. That summer, 1971, Carmel hummed with a quieter rumor. Locals said Donna's car pulled up around 9 noir. House lights glowed until 3:00 a.m., and at dawn, she was seen walking Carmel Beach, hair wind-tossed, as Clint, famous for his early runs, appeared a few minutes later along the waterline. No photos, just a small town's memory turning two silhouettes into a story. Her private life stayed sealed. Dinners with a television powerhouse here, a baseball star there, and the silence only deepened the mystique. Clint was still legally tied to Maggie Johnson, though long separated. Unlike other storms, Donna felt like a sweet dream with danger at the edges, which is often how the hardest infatuations start. They met on The Outlawed Josie Wales in the mid-1970s. Sandra Locke already had an Oscar nomination for The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, 1968. Delicate bones, unwavering gaze. Talent that made directors lean forward. From 1975 to 1989, she and Clint lived as if married, co-starring in The Gauntlet, 1977, Every Which Way But Loose, 1978, Bronco Billy, 1980, Any Which Way You Can, 1980, Sudden Impact, 1983, Red Carpet sold a power couple. Private Life told a costlier tale. Sandra said she turned down paths of her own to stand beside him. Meanwhile, Clint's other relationships and children stoked a tabloid bonfire through the 1980s. The break was brutal. Early 1989, while Sandra was making Impulse, she came home to changed locks, belongings in storage, guards at the gate. Moves, she said, came straight from Malpaso. With no way back in, she lawyered up. On April 26, 1989, she sued, seeking millions and citing emotional harm. A 1990 settlement arranged a Warner Brothers development deal for Sandra. When no films emerged, she sued again in 1996, alleging a sham pipeline, Clint's money routed through budgets to look like opportunity. Just as a jury readied to decide, the parties settled. Terms never surfaced. The bitterness never really cooled. Sandra said the fight made her radioactive in town. Few wanted to cross Clint. She directed when she could, then faded from the trade columns. On November 3, 2018, she died at 74. A quiet end to a loud story, a 14-year romance that charted the dark costs of love intersecting raw power.